Our top 5 is top 5 Johns.
So this was actually a lot harder than I thought it was.
There's a big difference between modern Johns and the historical Johns. I think that John is one of the names that has been declining over time. But I only put in Johns that were influential in my lifetime.
My number 5 is John Stewart.
Or I guess I should say, how?
Yeah.
I'm getting it.
I don't have an issue with that.
Talk show host for years, and now he's become an advocate for many, actually important things. So
my number 5 is John
Cena. Music, and he would never go to the studio with us, so we'd come home with our tracks and we'd play it for him.
I think that he is somebody who's not as influential as a lot of
be
other
satisfied
Johns,
with any song, and
but
he heard
did
the time
some
is
things
now.
that were kind of cultural iconic moments, right? Like You Can't See Me. So many people still that was a big deal.
I don't think he deserves to be on the list, but my number 4 is a tie because I couldn't decide which musician to put on, so I'm going to put them both at number 4, and that's going to be John Lennon. Can you guess the other John?
Probably my number 4 of John Denver.
No, Johnny Cash is my number 4.
Oh, my number 4 is John Denver. I think that John Denver is probably a more influential person than Johnny Cash. Maybe not as good of a musician. I don't know enough about music, but I think that more people know who John Denver is than Johnny Cash.
It's really like a genre thing, right? Like anyone country, bluesy, maybe rocky knows Johnny Cash. John Denver, pop, folk, rock.
But the thing with Johnny Cash is I know Johnny Cash's name and his look far more than I couldn't name them. I couldn't actually. If you were to give me a quiz between is this a Willie Nelson song or a Johnny Cash song, I don't think I would know. I'm not sure if I know any Johnny Cash songs.
Well, this one is a complete homer pick, but I'm putting it out there anyways, and my number 3 is John Candy.
Oh, okay.
Not that well known probably internationally, definitely not today, I'm sure. But man, when he was at the top of his game, back in the late 80s, early 90s, he was definitely an actor that, you could probably go to 20, 30 countries around the world and they would know who he was.
I actually have John Candy as my number 2.
Oh,
I think he's one of those actors along the lines of Tom Hanks, Robin Williams, that's just universally beloved. I mean, nobody's got to complain about John Candy.
So what's your number 3?
My number 3 is going to have to be, I think, Johnny Depp. I'm not a huge fan, but I think that you have to acknowledge that he's pretty famous.
Yeah, I mean, how many major franchises has he been a part of other than, obviously Pirates? My thing with him is he's like Nicolas Cage to me. Like he's going to go down as good. He's going to go down as one of the greatest ever, but it's at the same point, it's like he had such an up and down career.
Nicolas Cage is not one of the greatest actors of the generation, right? Like, come on now. That's ridiculous.
No, definitely not.
Johnny Depp's a little bit more famous. So wait, are we at your number 1?
No, we're at my number 2.
Oh, okay.
Which is Johnny Carson.
Yeah, you can make an argument he kind of started that whole late night thing, but it was before my time.
Well, and yes, once again, we sound like old curmudgeons. I know probably a lot of the younger generation that listens is going to go, who is that? But he was like the founding father of late night television. I mean, anybody from 1980 on.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I mean, so I had to put him somewhere, and I feel number 2 was a good spot for him.
Here's your number 1.
Oh,
you can't say John Cena.
No, it is not John Cena.
Stupid.
I'm just going to say John Madden.
He's not number 1, man.
But
I mean, he's pretty influential in that field.
But multiple fields, from a football coach and football to being a spokesperson for some of the most catchiest products, Tough Actin' Tenactin', boom, to a video game franchise, but not just boys, but I mean girls too. I mean Madden from 1997 until today is still, I mean I don't know the numbers, but it has to be one of the highest selling sports franchises ever, and he hasn't been involved with it probably since the late 1990s.
Well, I mean he is dead. I I can buy this argument that for our generation and younger, he might be the most influential John in some ways. Everybody does know who he is. My number one is kind of along those lines. And I think that not only is he the number one John, but he is the singular talent on this list is John Williams, the composer who did Star Wars, Harry Potter, E.T., all those things. I think John Williams is the number one John of our lifetime.
I mean, John Williams is he's yes. If you're gonna go deep, that's a deep dive.
That's a deep dive pick, but I think he's the number one John. Who's in your honorable mention?
So I got John Travolta. Didn't really want to put him on there, but I feel like
I felt the same way about John Travolta, but not really in our lifetimes. He hasn't really been in that many. Besides Pulp Fiction, he hasn't really been in that many big movies in our lifetime.
I do have John Wayne, John Denver. I put John Bon Jovi. I'm on a music kick. John Favreau. Yeah, and then I have John Goodman, but
I could see John Goodman. I don't think that John Favreau. Maybe. The problem is that he shifted a little bit more behind the scenes.
I mean, your number one was a guy who's done nothing but be behind the scenes.
Yeah, but he was so good at it that he broke out. I don't think John Favreau has done that yet. I wanted to put Elton John on there. I don't know if that quite counts, though. He is a John in a way.
No, that doesn't count.
Pretty much nobody else. I mean, I think the historical Johns, if you went with it, the people that like had influences before our lifetimes, John F. Kennedy,
Herbie Hancock.
Who?
John Hancock. You know the joke out of Tommy Boy Herbie Hancock. No,
I don't. Sorry.
Okay,
that's the worst when you tell a joke that nobody gets.